Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Tuesday. I hope the start of the week has been okay. You've sort of started to get over the disappointment of Sunday. I know it's going to take a while to get over, but I hope you've started the process as we head towards the weekend. Still 2 games to play, of course. Arsenal at Nottingham Forest on Saturday evening. Mikel Arteta's press conference is going to be Friday morning ahead of that one, so we see what he has to say then. And then it's all eyes on the big final weekend of the season when Arsenal take on Wolves at the Emirates. Okay, a few things I wanted to talk about in today's video. I wanted to start on sort of looking ahead to the summer. I think that's kind of what we're all doing now with the season, all but over, aside from the last 2 games. We're kind of looking, what do Arsenal do now? They've done a lot to bridge the gap this year. What do they do next? How do they take the next step? Champions League football, obviously coming back to the Emirates next season. How do Arsenal compete? Mikel Arteta sort of hinted at that and the challenges he faced with that in the press conference immediately after the game at the weekend against Brighton, when he talked about how the second half performance kind of made him have to think and analyse, how ready this squad is to compete at that very, very top level. So there's been a lot of talk about that. So I'll look a little bit ahead to that. Talk a little bit about, I don't know if you saw it last night, the VAR stuff on Monday Night Football. Howard Webb speaking to Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, and showing the conversations that were going on, which is really interesting, really insightful, I thought. So we'll have a look at a few things. But we'll start with the summer. And I've been getting lots of talk, obviously, can Arsenal sign Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo? Obviously, I can't sit here right now and tell you an answer to that. I can't say if they will sign both of them or not. In January, the plan was sign Caicedo and then sign Rice in the summer. So you kind of look at it that way and think, well, why can't they sign both this summer? It all depends financially whether it's doable. They're 2 players that they're very much interested in. And it will be very difficult to sign both players purely because of the finances involved. West Ham, we know, are looking at over 100 million for Declan Rice. Brighton are in a very strong position when it comes to Caicedo. If they're going to look at Declan Rice being sold for 100 million plus, that's what they're surely going to be looking for Caicedo. Slightly different players. Obviously, Declan Rice is English, which for some reason means that he's going to be more expensive because it's just the English tax, as we call it. And he's West Ham's captain. So, what he's worth to West Ham is absolutely huge commercially in all levels. And so maybe you look at it that way and think, you can see West Ham probably should get a bit more for Declan Rice than Brighton should get for Caicedo. But Caicedo's clearly an incredibly talented footballer. We saw that at the weekend when he played at right back and played so well out of position. And midfield is going to be really, really key to what Arsenal do this summer. 100%. That is a big area they're looking to improve. But it's not just looking at midfield. A new centre back's going to come in. A fullback I expect to come in. I think a right winger will come in. It has to come in. You've got to sign cover for competition for Bukayo Saka this summer. We've seen it. They've tried to do it before. It hasn't happened. Trying to get Rafinha last summer didn't happen, and they decided to leave it. They didn't get anyone in really to play alongside or to compete with Saka. I think that absolutely has to happen and will happen this summer. Potentially Rafinha's might well be available again. Will they go back in for him? We'll have to wait and see. Diaby at Leverkusen, could that be something that's potentially tied in with Granit Xhaka going to Leverkusen in the summer? All these things are going to be decided over the next few months. But I think selling players is going to be absolutely key for Arsenal in terms of what they're going to do this summer and how they take the squad up to the next level. Because when you look at it and you think Arsenal need a massive squad to compete, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think when you look at Manchester City, their squad isn't huge by any means. It's just such a high level. All the players are at such a high level that when you do make changes, when you do rotate, you're bringing in players who are pretty much at the same level as your regular starters. So there's no significant drop-off. And that's the thing for Arsenal, I think, is when the starting 11 haven't been there and you've had to move in some 2, 3, 4 players, the drop-off is pretty dramatic in some areas, and that's the difference between them and Manchester City, is that City, that drop-off isn't so dramatic. It's just pretty much like for like. It doesn't make, you decide not to play Grealish, you play Foden. You decide not to play De Bruyne, you play Bernardo Silva. That sort of level, it's just, it's so high. You give Haaland a rest on the occasion you do, and you bring in, I've forgotten his name now, Argentine kid who's just fantastic, who won the World Cup. You got Riyad Mahrez who can come in if you leave players out. And that's the level. You look at the defensive options that they've got, and that's what Arsenal, I think, need to start building towards. They've done a lot of good work on the squad, and the first 11 is very, very good now. But I think this summer's going to be, it's not so much about quantity, and I do think they'll sign a few, but I think it's about real quality. It's about raising the level of squad to a point where when you leave out one of your regular starting 11 and you replace him, the player who comes in is pretty much at bang the same level. And so there's no big significant drop off. And that's going to really help when it comes to rotation, because we've seen that Arteta's been scared to rotate this season, I think. When he's had the chance to play pretty much the same team, he's taken it because he's just been a bit too worried about rotating. Certainly in most areas, there's probably one or two where it doesn't really matter, and they're the areas you've seen him rotate more. But in most areas, he's just been, when he's had the chance to do it, he hasn't taken it, because I just think he's a bit wary about the drop off in performance levels and quality. And I think that's going to be the key area for Arsenal. And when you look at the midfield, I think that's an area, El Neni, decent player, good professional, well liked, but if you're going to leave out one of your midfielders, do you bring in El Neni? You don't, at a top level game, you'd ideally not want to do that. So I think those are sort of areas, those sort of players where you I think El Neni will probably stick around, but you want to really raise the level so you can, if you don't play Thomas Partey, you can bring in you can play a Declan Rice, or you can play a Caicedo. If you don't play Granit, if Xhaka's not there, you can play a Caicedo, although I think Granit might end up going this summer. Again, we'll have to wait and see on that. But it's going to be the key. You could see how despondent Mikel Arteta was in that press conference after the game against Brighton. I think he'll be sitting down. He would have been thinking about this before the game anyway, but I think maybe what happened in that game, in the way that Arsenal have ended the season, when the challenges really sort of ramped up and the pressure's ramped up, I think he'll be looking at that and think, right, we need to take things to the next level now. And it's the kind of character he is, it's the kind of manager he is. He's not going to be settling for second best. I said that yesterday. And I think the summer's going to be really, really fascinating what Arsenal do. It's going to be a busy one. And it's, like I said, I just think it's going to be a fascinating one to see the exact sort of approach they take in terms of the signings. But I can see, I could see Caicedo and Rice happening. It's going to be tough, and financially it'll be really, really difficult, but I think that's the sort of ambition that Arsenal would like to try and show this summer, to take it up to the next level. It's what the sort of ambition that Mikel Arteta is going to be demanding. But I do think that if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to sign those sort of players at the sort of money that it's going to cost, selling players is going to be key, because Arsenal are going to have to generate some good money this summer to be able to invest, to be able to spend that sort of money significantly on potentially two midfielders, but also be able to spend elsewhere to raise the standard of the squad elsewhere. And you look at some of these players, Fowler and Balogun, as hard as it might be and as disappointing as it might be to see him move on, I can see that happening, and to bring in good money at this time when his value is very much highest, especially if he's not going to be signing a new contract, which it doesn't seem like he's got much intention of doing. Then I think you've got to sell, potentially get 30 million for Fowler and Balogun. Granit Xhaka, difficult decision, such a popular player, such a key player behind the scenes, but if he's, if there's a doubt over him signing a new contract, and if you've got even like 15 million on the table from Leverkusen, difficult decision, but potentially it's what you've got to do to bring money in, especially if there's a way you could maybe, work Diaby into that deal and get him over, and then you fix a right-sided problem with Bukayo Saka there. Emil Smith-Rowe, again, another really difficult decision that would divide opinion massively because of how popular he is. But if you don't really fancy him, which at the moment it's not looking like Mikel does, and a good offer comes in, is that potentially someone you could bring in some money for? Kieran Tierney, looking at quite significant player sales there. Something that Arsenal haven't taken advantage of and haven't done much in recent years. But this summer it feels like one where they could generate some real money, and that money could then be reinvested to sort of top up the transfer kitty that there already is, to top up the Champions League money, which is going to help to strengthen the squad. And you can you put that all together, and suddenly you've got some really significant funds to be able to spend, not just on transfer fees, but also to cover the increased wages, which are going to be huge. And that's just on new signings, before you even counter in the Bukayo Saka's new contract, Aaron Ramsdale's new contract, and potential new contracts that are going to be needed to come down the line for Ben White, for Martin Odegaard, and just the clauses because of Champions League. So I think selling players is going to be so important to Arsenal this summer. Yes, all the focus is on incomings. You can understand that because you want to see who's going to come in to strengthen the squad. But I think selling players is so vitally important to everything Arsenal are going to do this summer. And if you are going to go out and sign Caicedo and Declan Rice for the money that would cost, and also be able to spend money elsewhere, then absolutely bringing in decent, significant funds is going to be crucial to that. So I think that's going to be such a big job that Edu has on his hands this summer in terms of reshaping the squad. Okay, so on the VAR stuff yesterday, I thought it was interesting. We saw the talk we heard the chatter from the VAR and the referee about why Leandro Trossard's goal at Leicester was ruled out. We saw the handball for Kivior's penalty that was ruled out at Newcastle the other day. It was really interesting stuff, insightful stuff. And the Trossard one did make me laugh, just at how determined it seemed they were to find out that was a goal they should be ruled out. It's like from the first second, the first replay, it was like, right, we've got to find out a way to rule this goal out. It was the correct decision, so I'm not blaming them for it, because I do think it was a foul and it should have been. But it's just, it kind of, you watch that and think how forensically they studied every single angle to find a way to rule that goal out. And you just thought, how have some of the other stuff been missed this season? It just made me laugh. It's like, how can you forget to draw the lines for the goal that was ruled out for Ivan Toney against Brentford, when you've just seen what they've gone through to find a way to rule out the goal against Trossard? And even the same way, it was so forensic for how they made the decision to come to the handball for Kivior, and again, it was the right decision. But you just think, you listen to that, and it was really interesting, really insightful, and you just think, how have you missed some of these things? The penalty that Brighton should have got against Tottenham, not so long ago, that wasn't given. And you just think, how can that not be given? How can you not look at all of those angles, all of those replays, and not give it, when we've seen how much you've forensically studied all those other goals? It's like, it just seems, I don't know if it's just like, it just feels like goals have to be, they need to find a way to rule out a goal, which is, again, I'm not complaining. It sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not, because it was a right decision. Trossard did foul the goalkeeper. He did hold him by the hand, and that did disrupt things a little bit. But it just made me laugh. But I think that again, Gary Neville not launched into it, but they all, again, sort of studied Arsenal's collapse and the reasons for it. And it just made me laugh. He was really going in, as he has been all season. He's been banging this drum all season. He's refusing to stop it. The whole Arsenal being too emotional in this season, it just makes me laugh. It's just like, that is not. There's a lot of reasons why Arsenal have failed to get over the line this season. You can look at some key moments in games. Obviously, there's so many what-if moments. The Tony's goal, that's 2 points for a start. Had the linesman or the VAR drawn the lines. Saka, had he scored the penalty against West Ham, I think that's definitely 3 points rather than 1 point. Gabriel Martinelli against Liverpool at 2-2, when he failed to pick out Saka with that pass, when he overhit the pass when Saka would have been through one-on-one. There's so many what-ifs moments. I looked at them yesterday. I did a piece looking at something like 10 of the biggest what-if moments of Arsenal season. There's so many of them. But to sit there and label it on them being too emotional, he talked about Zinchenko driving past the Tollington after the Bournemouth game and beeping his car horn as a reason for Arsenal not winning the league. And it's just like, it's so mad. And this is Gary Neville who's talking about it. It's the real hypocrisy, really. I was thinking back while watching it and thinking, this is a guy who, after United scored a last-minute winner against Liverpool at Anfield, he ran over to the Liverpool fans and was just celebrating in front. He wasn't celebrating with his team or his teammates. All he did was run to the Liverpool fans and celebrate in front of them, kissing his badge after a last-minute winner. When he was England assistant coach at Euro 2016, when Daniel Sturridge scored the last-minute goal against Wales, Neville legs it down the whole touchline, Mourinho style, to dive on all the players' backs and celebrate with them. England went and lost to Iceland in the knockout stages. He was celebrating a group stage win there, a second game group stage win in the last minute. And then England going to get knocked out by Iceland in the group stages. So is it Neville's fault that England got knocked out in the Euros because he was too emotional? It's just, football is emotion. It's what we love football about. It's like, I can't believe you'd sit there as an experienced guy like Gary Neville and just continue to bang this drum that Arsenal lost it because they were too emotional. They lost it for a lot of reasons. Mikel Arteta, should he have rotated more? He's clearly got this issue, Mikel, where he hasn't rotated much this season, whether that's because he doesn't trust his squad, whatever. But is that been a reason? Is he run Bukayo Saka into the ground? Saka's goals and input and assists have dried up at the key stage. The last 8 games, I think he's got 1 goal, 1 assist. Is that because Mikel Arteta has run him into the ground this season because he hasn't given him enough rest? Mikel chose to play William Saliba in the Europa League game against Sporting when he played the first leg as well, and he played him in the second leg. Saliba gets injured, misses the rest of the season. That's a crucial decision that Mikel Arteta has made that ultimately has had a big impact on the season, because Saliba got injured when probably he should have been given a rest that night. Those are the areas surely you look at when Arsenal and think, why have they dropped off, why have they failed to go over the line? Those are the areas, not Zinchenko beeping a car horn at a group of Arsenal fans as he drives past a pub after a last minute winner. It's mad. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it, but hey, that's just me. So apologies, I turned into a bit of a rant. I wasn't expecting to do that, but it just happened. Caicedo, we talked about Caicedo earlier on in this video. He kind of apologised for what he did. He said, he went on social media, said, if I could turn back time, I wouldn't have made that bad tackle. He's talking about what he did to Gabriel Martinelli at the game against Weekend. That's obviously given Gabriel Martinelli a bad injury. We'll wait and see how bad it is, whether he plays again this season. I doubt it, but we'll wait and see. Caicedo kind of apologising on social media for that, and it just felt like a revenge tackle at the time for what Martinelli had done to Matoma at the start of the game, and obviously he didn't go in to try and injure Martinelli. I think he just went to bring him down and prove a point really about what he'd done to his teammate, but obviously it didn't kind of work out the way planned, and Martinelli's ended up getting injured and could potentially be out for the season. So yeah, at least Caicedo did apologise for that, which I think is only the right thing to do. Him and Martinelli did hug it out after the game. Well, not after the game, when Martinelli was limping off later on, Caicedo came over and hugged him, and Martinelli hugged him back. So that was a nice touch, I thought. All right, that's it from me for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Anything you've agreed with, disagreed with, please do let me know in the comments below. And yeah, have a very good day. I'll speak to you soon.